The boroughs are New York City. The burbs are everywhere else. Real estate is the ultimate game of risk and reward. It's the biggest investment most people ever make. Fortunes are made over a lifetime and lost in a day. And we're not playing with monopoly money. How do you stay ahead? Who's buying? Who's selling? And why? What do they know? We want the truth. You need an edge. Boroughs and Burbs is your secret weapon, giving you the insider knowledge and strategies you need to succeed in the high-stakes world of real estate. From Palm Beach to Palm Springs, Manhattan to Malibu, we press the experts to expose the pain, find the deals, and occasionally predict the future. That's Boroughs and Burbs, Thursdays, 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific, because everyone can make money in real estate.
All right, welcome everybody. Season 4, episode 147 of Boroughs and Burbs. I'm very excited. Today we're doing why top interior designers, architects, and builders should collaborate. And I'm very pleased to be able to introduce, let me introduce my producer, Robin Bonder, and my co-host, Roberto Cabrera. Where are you, Roberto?
I'm on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I'm very happy to be here. I'm shocked and don't even know what I'm looking at because you do not have your propeller on. I would like to know why.
You know, I'm renovating at my house this week, and they said you have to move out because we're doing the floors, and we can't have you messing up the floors. So you have got to move out of your house. I forgot to bring my bow ties and my suits and all that with me. So this is my summer look.
You don't have like 4 or 5 random bow ties in a drawer there at the office?
You know, I thought I did, but you know, I'm totally unprepared, and so this is my summer look, Roberto.
Very good.
All right. So with that, let's introduce our guests. First up, I've got Alexander Gorlin. Let me pull up his, let me share a screen on his website. Alexander Gorlin is an architect. Right, there it is. Boom. There's the Southampton Beach House. There's the Nova Scotia House. I mean, really fabulous, modern, contemporary, but a real great range of architectural styles. I just fell in love with his work off of his website. Next, we're going to meet Melanie Calder Russo. This is her website, Calder Design Group. And we're going to find out from the designer's perspective how to work with an architect like Alexander. And finally, we're going to meet Salvo Contracting, Vincent Salvo of Salvo NYC, and here's his website. So with that, let me turn it over to you. Welcome, Melanie. Welcome, Alexander. Welcome, Vincent. So happy to have you on the show. Shall we begin? Lisa, I want to thank you for coming up with today's idea. You work with the very best architects, designers, and builders in New York. You work with the top design magazines. Why did you come up with the idea? Because the idea is entirely yours. Why we should be collaborating? Where'd that come from?
Well, the truth is, I think it's the only way to work for years. Not only today, but for years. I think that forget even referrals when you're doing a project. If you don't work well together, it's not successful. You have to work as a team. You have to basically be each other's cheerleaders because the system doesn't work. And it also turns to you, real estate agents and professionals in the real estate business. I think we all need to work together. I don't only think it's designers, architects, builders. I think it's also real estate professionals.
All right,
So
let's
that's why
turn it
it's
over to our
important for them to be on your show.
So let's turn it over to each of them and
by the
ask
way.
them to.
What's that?
Lisa's an amazing connector, by the way. She is the connective tissue amongst all these trades, for sure.
So with that, I think I should ask each of our guests to introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Alexander. Tell me about you and your practice.
I've been in practice since 1988, and I started off doing solely high-end residential. I've been one of the AD 100 from the beginning for about 20 years. More recently, an AD 100 emeritus, I would say. And then I expanded my work to do also social housing, affordable housing, commercial renovation, including the renovation of the legendary Bell Laboratories in New Jersey. So I do a very wide range of work, but I still love residential. There's nothing like working with a great site, great apartment, great interior designers, and great builders. So it's the most intimate in the end and very satisfying.
Excellent. Melanie, tell us about Melanie Calder Russo.
I know it's a tongue twister. So I've been in the business for about 20 years now. I actually started, my dad started the company back in the 70s, and he created this little empire that that I was very, very lucky to be a part of. I'm an only child, so you know, it's he and I, we're a little tag team duo, and he taught me everything I know. And we primarily do high-end residential. We have done, you know, commercial as well, but like Alexander said, there's something about residential that there is an intimacy to it, and basically having these wonderful relationships with the team really is the perfect recipe to get, you know, these amazing results. You could tell when everybody just works well together.
And Vincent, tell us about Vincent DeSalvo. DeSalvo NYC, I think, is the name of the firm.
Well, similar to Melanie's background, we were started in 1977 by my dad. It's a family-owned firm. He retired in 1984, and I succeeded him. Joined a couple of years later by my brother, so we're still co-owners of the company. We've done really nothing but high-end residential since that time. We started out doing smaller projects, specializing in interior finishes, but we've since the mid-90s really just expanded into full-blown apartment townhouse renovations in the city. And for about 10 years or so, we had an office on the North Shore of Long Island, which we closed after the financial crisis, but we were doing some large new home construction, renovations of large estates out there as well for some time. But now we're just focused on New York City and lovely projects that we do in Manhattan.
I have to say,
one of those properties was 730 Park Avenue. I recognize it. I've shown it. The one with the
yes.
The one with the modern staircase. That
That's right.
That must have been a heck of a feat to do that in that building.
Yeah, we combined 4 pre-war apartments and made it look like a Soho loft.
Incredible.
Yeah, and with summer work rolls. That was done in 2 summers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
well, I think that's actually an interesting question is talk about the difficulty of getting your projects done as an architect, as a designer, or we'll begin with you in New York City. I understand that's one of the really extraordinarily difficult problems that only New Yorkers have to deal with, that you can only work at certain times of the year. You got to get co-op approval. You're all sharing the service elevator, but for only 2 hours a day. I mean, there's hurdles that I don't have to deal with out here in Connecticut. Talk to me about the hurdles.
Well, and so that's where this title subject of collaboration comes in. If you don't have a team and everyone, you know, in stride, we don't succeed. We can't pull it off on our own. We either succeed or we fail together. a project like that has to happen. We get started typically almost a year in advance with designing and ordering things in advance. We even start building millwork before we begin demolition. So we're building things in advance of having exact field dimensions, and then we build to the right, exactly. We build to the dimensions that we've established in advance. So collaborating with the professionals and having the the experts that have the that have the experience to work at this level is essential, because we can't do it on our own.
Also, I find working in Manhattan, it's so important also in the buildings to befriend and the doormen, the supers, everyone working in the building, because you need them as your ally as well. I think that makes the process a lot smoother.
There's no question about that. Yeah, everything from building system shutdowns, plumbing shutdowns, elevator access, early morning access for deliveries, demolition, debris removal, all of that happens with cooperation, or the schedule can be impacted pretty severely.
Can we talk about the unspoken with regards to making friends with the supers and stuff like that? You know, I have a dear friend who did an amazing, very expensive renovation and in one of these buildings here along Central Park West, and he said to me, he's like, they're all crooks. He said the first day of our, I had a meeting with him. He said I brought him an envelope with $10,000 just to make sure it would go smoothly, and he took it.
Yep.
So.
Exactly.
But
so
I think
whatever the methodology, Vincent to Salvo is one of the best, and I've never had a job run so smoothly as not only with the building but with the clients, and it was just really an extraordinary experience. I didn't even think it was possible, actually. So,
what is one of those projects? Can you share one of them?
Well, I have some images of project on Park Avenue. But by the way, the greatest compliment is I've recommended Vincent to jobs that I don't even do, just to friends. So it's not entirely, something where I have to be the architect for the job, but I respect him so much, I've recommended him for projects where I'm not the architect. So.
And vice versa. Same here. I've done the same with Alex. We've yeah, that's one of our projects.
So
that's Boyarsky. The first project that I did with Alex, we were recommended by a resident manager to Alex's client. And Alex didn't know us, we didn't know him.
Right.
We just sort of hit it off, and we've become friends since working together. And again, it's the collaborative factor. We just look out for each other. We look out for the client's interest, and the designer is the third important factor. It's without having a designer whose input and understands the importance of schedule and ordering things in advance so that we can all stay on schedule and on budget. Any element that fails will derail the process.
Right.
Can we talk about this image? It occurs to me as a neophyte, I'm looking at a curved space.
Yes.
I've seen that before, but I don't generally see curved spaces with high-end decorative marble following the curve like this. So can you talk about the design idea and the difficulty of execution on something like this?
Well, as in most New York apartments, every inch counts. And the idea is to make, limited space seem as spacious and generous as possible. So this was a bathroom where there's a shower on the left and a tub straight ahead. And it was very difficult to actually get both of them in without it seeming like there was, they were fighting for attention. So by curving the wall and creating a kind of a chapel niche to cup the tub. It made the tub almost seem like it was also creating the curved wall, and then that flows into the glass enclosed shower, and then the designer, Andrew Torrey, selected this very highly figurative marble that really pulls your eye both inside and out. And I believe it's actually pieced together, the marble, but still has the surface is curved. So it was, believe it or not, an economical way of doing something that looks even more expensive than it is.
It's cut from behind, so you don't see the
Yes.
cuts in the stone.
Right.
Is that your secret, Vincent?
We can't give away all the secrets. What Alex isn't saying there is that, to the left of that glass door is a window, which is also a fire exit. There's a fire escape.
Yes.
He very cleverly had to contend with emergency egress exit there. And by having a large shower door and leaving the window in place, he managed to keep that second fire exit to satisfy the Department of Buildings. So it all worked out, and you'd never know that was technically a fire exit.
Right. Oh, that's right. Exactly. Right.
Alexander, do you design things and then you go to Vincent and Vincent kind of looks at you and say, well, how are we supposed to do that?
No. In this case, we worked.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask.
That's right.
Does
Exactly.
the designer come up with this, and then you roll your eyes and go, "Oh my God, do you know how hard that's going to be?"
I think so.
And we have how much time to do it?
Right.
All right. So again, here we have our second image: more curved spaces. So I mean, a lot of complex curves here.
Well, this apartment was, it's a full floor on Park Avenue, and it's two apartments that were put together. And the idea was to create a kind of very grand entrance vestibule and circulation spine by creating these vaults that have kind of lattice ribs on them that would create a kind of wonderful place of arrival. And that would flow into the living room, dining on the left side, a den forward ahead, and that's the elevator vestibule on the far end. And then the floor pattern is adapted from a marble pattern I saw in Venice in Italy, and then the screen was made in Colombia, and Vincent cleverly put together the vaults, and that's where we worked with Vincent very closely on how to achieve these vaults in a way that could be done within the time frame and look like they're solid, but they're actually it's actually a hollow construction.
What point in this process would, for example, Melanie come in and start to impart her expertise on a process like this?
Well, in this case, the designer was really a friend of the client and worked from the beginning. Although I would say the key to this job was, as Andrew Torrey was said, everyone keeps in their own lane. So everything that was structural and spatial, we really organized, and he helped select the materials, and then we bounced off each other for some of the patterns. So like we came up with this floor pattern, but then he selected the materials. So it was interpreted in a way that would go with the overall pattern and color decor of the apartment. But I've worked with interior designers in different ways, and each one in relationship to the client has a different relationship to the architect, I'd say.
Right. Yeah, it really depends on the part of the job that we're asked to come in on. Typically, the client will come to us already with the architect selected. And I always find it's much more successful working from the very beginning with the architect and going through the plans with them and tweaking, you know, giving our input on what could be tweaked, and we work together from there. And then once the walls, all of the hard parts of the bones of the house are solidified between the architect, the designer, and the client, then we get to work on the decorative process.
So I found some slides of your recent projects. Can you walk us through these? I think there's 100, so we should go through them quickly. But...
Wow, that's amazing.
So this house is on the Jersey Shore, right on the beach. And in this case, the client selected an architect from California. They wanted very much that West Coast vibe for the exterior of the house. So we honestly did not have much interaction with the architect on this project. They worked with him on the plans and what they wanted the outside to look like. But when it came to this fireplace, for example, it was our idea to have this floor-to-ceiling fireplace, which, if you go through to the exterior, that fireplace carries through to the outside. There's a living space outside, and it essentially, we wanted it to look like the fireplace went from the outside all the way right through the house. But all of the adding the wood to the ceilings, that's a different house.
Oh. I can't find the outside, but eventually I guess we'll get to it.
That's on the second floor, so that fireplace is in the primary bedroom. Same material being used on all three fireplaces. So it's the illusion that this goes right through. But in terms of all of the details inside, that was all considered interior work that we did.
And this was done after the architect had designed the structure and focused on the exterior. Then you came in and started thinking about the interior.
Right. The interior was laid out in these large open spaces. But that wall behind the bed, we created that to give a separation from the hallway to their bathroom and walk-in closets. We decided to clad it in the wood tile, the mirror above. We created all of those, essentially the details.
It seems to me that the client might have saved money and gotten a better product if he had involved you at the same time that he involved. I mean, the subject of the show is collaboration. And this is really fascinating to me that the client was able to go through the architect process and then segment and then engage a designer.
Well, we did work in the beginning, the first few meetings with the architect as well. But like I said, I believe he being on the West Coast, the client was adamant that they wanted us to do the interiors. So in that case, that was a separate and apart situation.
Talk to me about working with somebody who's on the West Coast. All three of you are New York-based architect, designer, builder, contractor. So what's the benefit in being able to sit face-to-face, or is that sort of old school since COVID? We don't need to actually, sit face-to-face.
No, old school is, I still like old school. I think it's very beneficial to be able to sit down with someone and hash it out one-on-one. Do you agree, Alexander?
I do. Although to some degree, I think it's like, how does Jean-Georges have an empire of restaurants that maintain the same quality, in Dubai and Los Angeles and New York? So I think it's possible to do a good job, but to some degree, I think it's going to be less personal, because unless you see the person face to face. I think there's something lost about getting the nuance of interpreting what they are looking for, or giving them something that's different, really.
Although at the, at the level that we're typically working with, we usually, it's inevitable that we work with a lot of international designers or architects. So we have to accommodate whoever the clients choose to work with. Just touching on a point that you made a minute ago, Roberto, getting the designer or the builder or the architect involved a little later in the process sometimes is a little counterproductive, because I think that if you involve everyone early on in the process, it can be beneficial for a number of reasons, because we all bring varied experiences in how to build things. And there are different ways of achieving a very common or similar goal. And I think if you just draw on the varied experiences that all of the professionals can bring, you may be able to achieve a very similar outcome at a faster or less expensive, or just at a better pace, without some of the complications that come by engaging the professionals incrementally. That doesn't always happen, because sometimes the architect is brought on board, then the designer, and then the builder last. But I find it's better that it's a collaborative process early on, and everyone can bring apply their input. It just I think makes for a better process from the very beginning.
Can I ask you a question? You used the word accommodate. You said, and sometimes we have to accommodate like a certain trade, architect, designer, in your case. And for all of you, this process seems like a three-legged table, if there's a balance, right? Have there been circumstances where they're literally one of the three legs is really not working, and you guys have to somehow pivot to the client and say, we have to replace this third leg, whether it's whichever leg it is? And
or compensate for it. I mean, you don't always get to fire one leg of the stool. You have to sometimes make it work.
Well, I think there are a lot of great war stories, so
Yeah.
Yes, sometimes we struggle. We struggle through with complications. Other times, yes, someone is replaced along the way, an architect. We very often come in midway through where the contractor was a problem, or where there were other complications. So yes, there are, we call some of those rescue projects, where the project is stranded along the way for whatever reason. Sometimes it's a combination of an architect and a contractor just not seeing eye to eye, and the client has to make a decision as to who to cut loose. So yeah, there are all sorts of.
I once did an addition to a house where I sent the designer the drawings of the bedroom, and he ordered a armoire that was taller than the ceiling, and it was all new construction. And then it showed up, and he said, you've built this too low. I said, no, I sent you the drawings, and it was clearly marked as to the height of the ceiling. So I mean, anything can happen, and so just have to be prepared somehow.
So it occurs to me that all of you guys have these legacy firms, 1970s, 1980s. And, I know that when I have clients and they ask for a recommendation from an attorney or this or that, I have my 4 or 5 core people that I know that are going to get the deal done. They have the expertise, they can handle everything. We've been through every type of deal you can imagine. How does someone break into your kind of referral network in some ways so that they're also being referred by you and that type of thing? Because I can only imagine that you guys have, when a job is important and every client is important, it's like, I need them to work with one of these people because I know it'll get done properly. How does someone, how often do you encounter someone new that is another reliable, can you just speak to that? I don't even know where I'm going with that. I'm just kind of curious because I find myself in a certain situation where I do meet a random attorney who seems very good, or I sat in a seminar with them or something, but yet I've not worked with them. And then when it comes down to it, I'm like, you should use one of these 5 guys.
Well, I think it only happens by working together and seeing if there's chemistry and the people are simpatico with each other. I mean, I think you really can't tell. I mean, for example, working with a new interior designer, I have no idea whether, the work can look good on paper, but are they going to, it's a very direct, intimate relationship, and it goes on for years. So, you just see how it goes. If the other person is open-minded and, also if they think you're open-minded to change or ideas, and the same with the builder, really. So
Right.
I think with the builder, it's you just don't want them to blame you for mistakes.
Right. The blame game is never fun.
Which
I'm
is
fascinated.
actually very typical for contractors, I would say.
I'm fascinated
Commercial
with this.
construction, but not in high-end residential.
I'm fascinated with this whole notion of process. It occurs to me that, I'm a client and I want to renovate top to bottom my new $30 million townhouse in New York. And I've set a budget for, I don't know, $10 million. It's a big budget. But so now I've got to work with an architect who says, yeah, I think we can make these changes. The designer says I can make these changes. And then Vincent, he's got to put together a Gantt chart, right? I would imagine, we're going to start with this, and we're going to order the kitchen cabinets on this date, and you got to keep everybody moving along. And if any of those dependencies fail, then all of a sudden the $10 million project, which was supposed to take 10 months, is now 12 months, 14 months, and the budget's blown, the timeline's blown, and you just said, I can't play the blame game. So talk to me about how you manage this $10 million project and keep it on time and on budget, given that it's a very creative product.
And then you have to add the client into it, who the client also, when we find time is of the essence, we all know this, and time is money, and the longer a project takes, it's very difficult. But if the client's also dragging their feet, which
what if they're changing their mind, Melanie?
Right, changing their mind, they're not ordering on time. I mean, ordering on time is key. And sometimes the clients don't understand that, but I think if there's proper communication between everyone involved, it's really all about the communication and saying, listen, if we don't order this by this date, it's not happening.
That's right.
So I think the more honest we are with each other and the client, the best way.
Well, also, I would say from the beginning, did you say 30,000 square feet?
I just said $10 million and 10
well, that's already insufficient.
Okay. Good. That's what I like to hear.
It's a terribly low number for 30,000 square feet in Manhattan right now.
Okay.
Well, I think the first step is to implement a rigid structure. So there's the Gantt chart means a schedule, but along with the schedule, as Melanie said, there are benchmarks where the client needs to make decisions, where we need to place critical orders that have to come in on time to maintain schedule. And everyone needs to know what their responsibility is to make the schedule work, including the owners, especially the owners, because very often the owners will think that they've had no impact on schedule when they typically have the most impact on schedule. So it's just a question of communicating that and making sure that everyone knows when they need to make decisions, what they need to do to make the schedule work.
How does that work in practice? You meet every week, you go over the Gantt chart, you talk about the dependencies with the client, you got to choose your tile, you got to choose your fabrics, and then if they don't, then you're, I guess, hustling over to Melanie and saying, we need a backup plan because I only have a window where I can get into this building and I need material there. So what's our backup?
we try to start that process before construction even begins. We try to get a head start in what we call a pre-construction phase, where we try to establish sort of a running start, establishing advanced orders, or at least understanding which items have longer lead times, so that we can get things on order and having them available before we even need them. But yes, we do set up weekly a site meeting, a project meeting. Clients are usually encouraged to attend if they can't attend in person, at least remotely, either themselves or a representative, so that they can track progress. We issue a meeting agenda in advance so everyone knows what will be discussed, so that they can come prepared to discuss the critical items. And then we issue meeting minutes with a list of follow-up responsibility items, so everyone knows, who's responsible to follow up on the critical items. And then
that also, sorry, that also helps prevent a lot of errors or changes later on when you're meeting week to week or every other week. As you're seeing it happen, you could correct something before a wall is closed up. It works out much better in the end.
Having the owners involved, right? When they can come in and see
Everyone
things as
involved.
they're being built, right? Yeah.
Is it harder in New York City? When you hear that it's in a co-op building in New York, do you sometimes say, oh, well, we better add another 30% to the time and the budget on this one?
Well, I mean, this is primarily what we do, so we're used to, New York City and the difficulties that come with it. Working outside of the city is easier in some ways, and it has some other complications. But yes, it's time restrictions and deliveries, parking, elevator access, that sort of thing. Of course, we're just, we're used to it. There's a premium that comes with it because of the limitations and the complications.
You know what, Vincent? I'm in Connecticut. We don't have any complications.
Yeah, sure.
Come on out. It's beautiful in Connecticut. No complications whatsoever. No co-op boards.
Right.
You
Also,
just have,
by the way,
you just have maybe a bit of a longer ride to get to a certain supplier or whatever. Other than that, you're right. Once you get out there, you start working.
Right. You don't have as much traffic.
you have a lot of ticks, though.
So you guys are all at the very top of your field. You're at the top layer, luxury. You have someone, what takes you to that level from someone who's, say, 80% of what you guys would cost, and everything, at a certain point you're doing a renovation, you've already spent a tremendous amount of money on a property or land or whatever the case may be, and then the things just start to add up. And then you start to say, listen, I need to watch this budget. And someone who wants to spend 80% of what you might charge, what does that extra, what makes that last 20% that makes it worth it for someone to do something with you? What do you bring to the table? Because it starts to get extraordinarily expensive. And when you're dealing with billionaires and things like that, money doesn't really matter. Everything's chosen for them, and everything's done on time.
Everyone always has a budget, even.
Exactly. I was just going to say that.
One's total net worth doesn't necessarily reflect, their budget or how they value the dollar, let's say. I'd say generally, on the other hand, it's attention to detail, understanding about what people of that income level are looking for. A lot of it is also attention to them, holding their hand, and they all demand a lot of personal time, let's say, I would say.
Yeah, I've never had a client come to me and say, this isn't really enough. Can you charge a bit more for this? I think everyone is really focused on, at our level anyway, the design, architects, the professionals that come along. but I think every client has their particular individual individual items that whether it's a special dressing room or a bar or you know, even one client had a golf simulator that he wanted and he built an entire man cave around it. So yeah, everyone has their own individual item that they just will open up the wallet for, and you know, it's money. But I don't know that anyone just will say, you know, here's a vacant lot, just have at it, do whatever you want.
I did have one client where we had renovated the apartment years before, and the entrance vestibule that was about 150 square feet was done in leather tile. And after about 15 years, they wanted to replace the tile because some of it was wearing. And so the contractor gave a price of about $10,000. And the client's wife said, "Is that per tile?" And so I should have thought quickly and said, "Oh, absolutely."
At the beginning of the show, I looked up, and Melanie is in the top 50 designers every year in the New York magazines. And you mentioned, Alexander, that you're in the AD 100. How important is that to finding new business? The answer you just gave was that, you know, when you're at the top of your profession, that these clients expect that your experience, not just, you know, your eye for design, but your experience is going to help them keep this project on track and on budget, and that you are that you've seen it all in a career that goes back to the 70s. So talk to me about how important it is to make those lists and be recognized in the profession.
Well, I think I'm not really sure. I think it's important, these lists. I mean, people definitely, when they Google you and look you up, that I feel like they see that, they'll see, you know, you're the top, and they'll say, okay, they know what they're doing. So, but I don't, to speak to people that are potentially not on those lists, I don't know if that means that they're any less, you know. I don't know.
Are you getting your business from that kind of PR, or are you getting it from your sphere? Is it word of mouth?
More for me, yes, it's more word of mouth.
Really? I liked working with her. You will too.
Yeah. Sometimes it's from the PR. I mean, we all want that.
I think
Obviously.
I think it's a mix of things, and also, honestly, I think years ago the magazines were much more the focus of people's attention, but it's become much more diffuse now with electronic media and social media. So it's definitely a mix of things, I would say. And also, I think that's one of the you know, purposes of this discussion. I mean, I've gotten work from interior designers that I actually two large projects from interior designers I had never met before, and the same with from a real estate broker I had never met. So I'd say it comes from all over now, which might also be a function of being around for a long time as well. So it's a more kind of diffuse visibility. But it's
Yeah,
definitely
social
good
media,
to be on lists
definitely.
of all sorts.
Social media, I know recently is playing a bigger part for sure. I'll get, you know, direct messages on Instagram often.
Talk to me about social media. How important is that? It occurs to me that I'm going to find Vincent because he's already worked with the great architects and the designers. He's part of the network. But I would imagine if you're on the creative side of that business, that you've got your stuff out there on Instagram, and that's how you're getting a reputation.
Yeah. I mean, this is a visual business, you know, interiors. So posting those photos and stories and anecdotes, and even if it's just a shot of a mood board, I think it's, you know, it's a little feast for the eyes. I think everyone appreciates that.
Is that also collaborative? Basically the promoting after the project is done, you know, you and the architect and the contractor all have a vested interest in getting that story told and getting it told right, be it Instagram or magazines.
Yes, 100%. I just finished a job that I'm having photographed the end of the month, and the architect said to me, please share the photos with me. You know, and of course I will. It's very important. And I tag and do the collaborations on Instagram. I love to everyone should have credit for what they've worked so hard on.
Yeah, I typed in your name in one of the very first into Google. One of the very first posts is Cliff Young Design Competition, and they're promoting you, you know, at Cliff Young Design. That's why I wondered how important it was, you know, that we're participating in these magazines and the publications and the awards. I think it was
good,
New York Spaces that Lisa's brought us involved in. Each year we do a show on New York Spaces and the designers and the show houses there. And it seems to be a very important part of the business.
Well, being out there and being seen, and whether it's in any sort of the media is, you know, any medium is amazing. The more you're out there, the more visible you are. The people know your name, they look you up, they see more.
Also, I think you have to go to, well, being in New York is it's a social city. So I think you need to go to social events, art openings, museum. I go to a lot of benefits for art, nonprofits. Actually, I've met clients at Cafe St. Ambrose on Madison Avenue. In fact, sometimes I feel I should just go to bars and cafes all day long and meet people.
It's true. You never know who you're going to meet.
So, you saw Leonard Lauder at St. Ambrose. I don't know. It's a very, it's an interesting city in that sense.
So I'm going to show a design here, one of Alexander's designs. Can you talk to me about this? This is a Southampton beach house. Roberto has a Southampton beach house. And doesn't look like what I imagine when Roberto talks to me about Southampton.
Well, this actually is a great example of pre-collaboration. This came through an interior designer, David Scott, who bought an apartment in a building I designed in Miami Beach. And he lived next door, and he liked the plan so much that he recommended me to his clients, for whom he had done a number of apartments. And then, you know, which resulted in this incredible house on the ocean in Southampton on Meadow Lane. Mm. And we worked together from the beginning with David, but he, again, was very respectful of our architectural ideas, and really worked with helping, you know, direct the client to actually go more modern, which I think was quite wonderful. And he did a beautiful job on the interiors, very warm and inviting. And we've worked together a number of times since then. But I had not known him at all, and it didn't come through social media. It came through direct, you know, a direct relationship based on a plan that I had designed.
So, but this was a blank slate, and it was like,
well, no, actually, there was a house from the 1970s, a developer house that at the point they decided to tear it down, it started spontaneously combusting in various parts of the house. So, so they thought that was a sign that they should start over. And initially, they actually hired a local architect to do a kind of shingle style house. But in fact, David helped convince them that that wasn't really appropriate for this site.
When I look at this first picture, everything is immaculate and it's a grid. And when I look at this picture, I see the natural grasses and looks a bit more rugged. Talk to me about the mission. What
Yes.
what was the assignment?
Well, the assignment was oddly enough, a beach house that would be easy to maintain. And it's on Meadow Lane with a really extraordinary view in both directions. It's that narrow spit of land in Southampton that faces Shinnecock Bay on one side and the ocean on the other. And the idea of the house was really to create a very simple kind of sunshade facing the ocean, the south. And then on the entry side, to have these two teak boxes pop out as kind of inviting you in. And it's much more manicured. And there was an existing tennis court on the left side. And so this side is kind of more, manicured, and the other side is the natural dune vegetation. And then the entire rooftop is a roof deck that overlooks the ocean, that's conceived of as an outdoor room. So the fireplace protrudes out, and you can sit around the fire. And it's over like 150-foot roof deck that has views in every direction.
Seems like you're at that house now.
I am.
Is that what your place looks like, Roberto?
No. Not on the beach, for one.
Alexander can hook you up.
Yes. Well, by the way, I should mention, I don't just do houses at this level. I mean, I always respect the site and the client's budget, and really work backwards from what their budget can sustain. In this case, they kept saying, no, keep going. So
you see, you're not charging me enough.
Exactly right.
Where's this industry going? I want to sort of look at the future. I want you guys to polish off the crystal ball, because we've got, I don't know, the last 10 minutes. Our final thoughts. Where is this industry going? How's it changed since COVID? It seems to me, at the very first level, that all of you work in New York, and it's gotten harder to get things done in New York City, for one thing. What other changes are occurring, and where is our industry going, and where are people going to find their clients in the future?
Yeah, Vincent, what do you?
Well, from my perspective, I can say that last year we had the busiest year we've ever had in business. It was due to COVID backlog. That, I think that has ended. I think we've caught up. But I think the clients that we're seeing, that we have seen since COVID, are folks that we're building their 7th or 8th or 10th home. They are either upgrading their New York City residence or just buying their first New York City home. But very few people that are buying their primary home to raise their family here. At least that's what we've seen. A lot during COVID, obviously a lot of people left the city for suburbs or moved out of state, left a little bit of a vacuum. We saw a lot of people, older people, empty nesters come in, fill that vacuum for a while, and which was a good thing. Now we're seeing a lot of people from out of state, even out of the country, coming in, buying some of the more upscale properties that we've been working on.
I'm so glad you said that, because you're right. During COVID, all of the stuff that was done and pretty and move-in ready got sold. And now I have to say my business is up, and mostly it's people are buying things that require an architect and a designer and a builder, because all the easy stuff has been picked over. Is that also true in Roberto, in New York? It occurs to me that if when there was plenty of choice, that's one thing, but now I've got to basically assess and there's not a whole lot of empty land here in New Canaan, or in Darien or in Westport. So people are taking on projects and engaging an architect and a designer like Melanie and saying, what can I do with this? Can I make this my dream home?
Well, here, the delta between renovated and unrenovated was 70% of value for an unrenovated property. And now that's narrowing. It's still a decent gap. It's probably 75, 80%, but it's just, so that means that people are they're taking on more and more projects. But it's also one of the reasons why that happens, because you couldn't get into buildings, you know, after COVID. It was very difficult and things were backed up. That, you know, since that's eased and that's smoothed out, I think that's what's narrowing the gap a bit, because it's still quite expensive and it's quite onerous to renovate a property in the city. It just is.
It is, but the availability of products, the materials backlog, that's been resolved. So we're able to build things at a normal pace now, which was a problem for some time. And the availability of even qualified subcontractors and tradesmen, that's been resolved. Last year, we couldn't get any qualified people to even price things, to even estimate projects for us. It was very frustrating.
You might be the only man in New York who says the labor problem has been resolved and declaring victory. The rest of New York is still struggling to get a craftsman on board at the right time.
Yeah,
we
it's
have
worse in the suburbs.
We have a pool of very loyal tradespeople that we work with regularly, so we can get people to respond. But even they were overwhelmed last year.
All right, Melanie, Alexander, he's ready to go. He's cleared his backlog. What does the future hold?
Well, I mean, I think this is one of the last artisanal businesses, interior design and luxury architecture. And in fact, we find our clients are either those who are, doing custom houses and interiors, or we do affordable housing. So there's really nothing in between. I don't think, or people come to us in a sense without the correct budget, but then we can act as consultants or something. But to do a full-blown job is expensive, takes time, and yet there's right now actually we're re-renovating a house that we perfectly renovated in Miami Beach. And was sold for a very nice price, but these new clients bought it and are basically redoing about a third of it, and actually showing us some luxury items that I wasn't even aware of. So
that's interesting. Do you have? I mean, it's interesting because I've sold a lot of apartments, and people are like, "Who did this? I want to go back to them to redo some of this other stuff." Do you have a lot of business that kind of comes in that form?
I would say a good amount, yes.
Yeah, that's happened with us as well, where we'll get a job, someone bought the property, liked what was there, but wanted to revamp and asked who did the house originally. So that's kind of cool.
Which is the way it should be, really. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, I always am aware that after Frank Lloyd Wright designed Falling Water for the Kaufman family, which is like one of the great houses in the world, this is not it though, but it is a good house. They hired Richard Neutra to do the Kaufman house in Palm Springs. So, I'm aware that clients can be very fickle, and it's their choice to hire whoever they wish. So, no matter
Melanie, are you
how great a job you do.
Melanie, are you busy? Are you as busy as you want to be, Melanie?
No, never.
Okay.
No, I'm busy, but I've been busier.
Okay.
Where did Vincent go?
Okay, he'll be back. So you could be busier, and are you finding what's the trend? Are people refocusing on New York City apartments, or are they focusing on their beach houses and the Hamptons?
Right now, I would say 75% are all second homes, beach houses.
Interesting.
Yes, yes.
Why is that? Why are we investing in our beach homes, not refocusing our attention on Park Avenue?
I don't really know. I think maybe people are enjoying their secondary homes longer than just, you know, the 2 months of the summer. Also could be, you know, after COVID, people are taking more time outside the city still.
Roberto tells me
people-
there's plenty of inventory. There's plenty to buy on Park Avenue, and there's some good deals on
Yeah,
Park
that's
Avenue.
right.
So I'm a little surprised that you're telling me that there's not money moving in that direction.
Well, wait, I think people who can afford to live on the ocean in the Hamptons don't need to work so hard to begin with. So why would they want to be in the city all the time?
I have found that the people on the beach in the Hamptons who don't have to work are the people working the hardest. That those are the people who work 22 hours a day and don't really get to enjoy their Southampton
Oh,
beachfront
yeah.
that much because they're always on.
But actually, it's true. The Park Avenue older buildings are at a discount now. People want in Manhattan want to live in new buildings with big glass windows and great views, and Park Avenue just doesn't have that really. I mean, so you can find great deals at some of these, you know, formerly most desirable buildings, actually.
And can you make it modern? I remember growing up in New York City in the 70s and some of these fabulous duplexes on Park Avenue. It's hard for me to imagine that you could make that modern. But
Did
you
you
just
see
showed us an
730
example.
Park? Did you see 730 Park that Vincent did? That's
Yeah,
a
that's
feat.
modern.
You can make it anything at all,
Yeah.
but not everyone wants to go through the onerous process and jump through the hoops.
Right.
And with the time limitations that are imposed by many of the Park Avenue buildings.
And some buildings are resistant to that type of conversion, right?
Very few buildings will limit the aesthetic that you can go through, but a lot of buildings will limit the structural changes that you can
Like
make.
there's a certain building that has some curved walls in it, and they won't let the people touch them.
Oh yeah, well, that sort of thing, yes, for sure. Or there, you know, some buildings will not let you expand window openings, aside from landmark limitations. Other buildings will, as long as it's not a landmark limitation.
Right. Actually, we just finished a duplex on Central Park West. It was a penthouse that was a ramshackle series of about 3 or 4 apartments that we put together and did one incredible crystal glass, you know, room that has a 100-foot roof deck overlooking the park.
Yeah.
So you can really transform these places quite significantly.
That's my prediction. That's my crystal ball. I think the money is going to move back into New York and it's going to rediscover some of these older buildings and the value that they present. And what they need is an Alexander, they need a Vincent, they need a Melanie. And once they discover that you can transform them and modernize them, I think I was unaware that you could do that to a Park Avenue apartment, and so was Roberto before this show. So thank you for that.
From
I
your
think we're
mouth to
running.
God's ears, you know.
We're almost out of time, so I wanted to thank, before we go, my sponsor, Grace Farms Teas and Coffees. You can see that now available at the Whole Foods Market, but they've got some awesome teas and coffees that I give to my clients as gifts. So check out gracefarmsfood.org and then come on out to New Canaan and check out Grace Farms, the 80-acre with the Pritzker Prize winning river building. And with that, I'd also like to ask you, if you like today's show, you like Boroughs and Burbs, You can find us on Apple Podcasts, and please give us a review and tell your friends. Thank you, Vincent DeSalvo. Thank you, Melanie Russo. Thank you, Alexander Gorlin. This has been a great show. And thank you, Lisa, for putting it together.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Fabulous.
And I'll see you, Roberto, next week. On
I
Boroughs
will
Burbs.
see you, Skipper. Take care.
And I'll
guys.
have a bow tie on by then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.